You wake up, another day, another routine. But deep down, something feels off. You're stuck, moving through life but not really in control. The same problems, the same frustrations, the same sense that time is slipping away and you're still not where you want to be. You've tried to push harder. You've tried motivation, discipline, and even sheer willpower, but nothing seems to stick. Why? Because the battle isn't outside, it's inside. The real war is in your mind. Think about it. The most powerful people in history weren't born different. They weren't gifted with superhuman intelligence or endless luck. They mastered one thing: themselves. They understood that success isn't about external circumstances, but about how you train your mind to think, learn, and dominate. This video isn't just about inspiration, it's about strategy. It's about rewiring the way you think, sharpening your focus, and building an unbreakable mindset that puts you back in control. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet his biggest challenge wasn't war, it was mastering his thoughts. Seneca, Epictetus, and the greatest minds in history knew one truth: your mind is either your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. Stay with me, because in the next 40 minutes, you'll learn the principles, the tactics, and the mindset shifts that separate the unstoppable from the forgotten. Are you ready? Let's begin. 1. Forge an unbreakable mindset. The path to mastery. There's a moment when every man faces himself in the mirror and realizes he's not the man he set out to be. Maybe it's the weight of regret pressing against his chest, the feeling that somewhere along the way he stopped fighting, the fire he once had, diluted by comfort, eroded by failure. He remembers when he was relentless, when obstacles didn't stop him but fueled him. And now he hesitates. It doesn't happen overnight, it's subtle. A small concession here, an excuse there. He tells himself it's temporary, that next week, next month, next year, things will change. But time moves forward. His reflection stays the same, and then a choice presents itself. Either he accepts that life has beaten him, or he reclaims control. Not of circumstances, but of himself. The battle has never been with the outside world. It has always been within. Strength, success, resilience, none of it is granted, it's earned. And it begins with mastering the mind. Most men believe their struggles are unique, that their failures are personal burdens, that their fears are their own. But history disagrees. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, betrayal, and the weight of an empire. Epictetus was born a slave, beaten and crippled. Yet still he rose. Seneca lived under the constant threat of execution, yet remained unshaken. Their circumstances differed, but their minds operated the same way. They didn't break because they refused to see hardship as a sentence. They saw it as a test, and tests can be passed. There was a man once who knew this truth, but only after losing everything. His business collapsed, his marriage followed. What remained was a shell of a life. He spent months angry, blaming the world, blaming others, blaming himself. He waited for something to change, for the pain to lessen. But pain doesn't work that way. It doesn't go away. It waits, it lingers, it festers, until you do something about it. One morning, he stood at his doorstep, staring at the street. His mind was at war, a voice whispering that it was pointless, that no effort would make a difference. Another voice, quieter but relentless, reminded him that giving up had never been the answer. So he took a step forward. He got a job, one he hated but endured. He trained his body, not for vanity but for discipline. He read, not for escape but for strength. And the more he pushed forward, the quieter that voice of doubt became. Months passed. A new business emerged. His confidence returned. He was still standing. Stronger, sharper, no longer waiting for life to hand him peace, but forging it himself. Most men crumble under pressure. They believe it's the end. But the Stoics understood something different. Pressure is not the enemy, it is the forge. A piece of metal left untouched will rust. Left in the cold, it will crack. But subjected to fire, hammered and mold, it becomes something unbreakable. A weapon, a force, a foundation. Your mind is no different. The problem isn't hardship. It's how you react to it. The fire you fear is the fire that will shape you, if you let it. Most run from it. The great ones walk through it. They understand that suffering is not an obstacle, but the price of transformation. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome during plagues, invasions, and betrayals. He wrote not about despair, but about control. About standing firm when everything around him was collapsing. Seneca lost his wealth, his status, and his security, yet wrote about tranquility, about the ability to remain untouchable amidst the chaos. Their power came from one thing: perspective. They refused to see the struggle as an attack and instead welcomed it as an opportunity. Most men spend their lives avoiding pain, searching for comfort, and retreating when things get hard. And that's why most men never become anything more than average. The path to mastery requires embracing the forge. There's an old training exercise used by the Spartans. Young warriors would be forced to fight in complete darkness. No sight, no advantage. They had to rely on instinct, resilience, and raw will. The first time, most panicked. They flailed, missed, and lost their footing. But those who endured learned to move differently, to listen, to fight without fear. Life does the same to you. It blindsides you, strips away your security, and forces you into darkness. And in that moment, you either panic, break, surrender, or you adjust. You feel your way through. You trust yourself. Step by step, you become stronger. You will not master your mind in a day. But you don't need to. You just need to take the first step. Train your mind to see failure as fuel, to view obstacles as necessary, to replace self-pity with action. And when the fire comes, don't run. Stand in it. Because if you do, you won't be burned. You'll be forged. 2. Unlock the ultimate learning formula. Train your mind like a weapon. A man can lose everything: his job, his fortune, even the people he loves. But if he keeps his mind sharp, he is never truly defeated. The ability to think, adapt, and learn faster than the competition is what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. Yet, most people never question how they learn. They read, they memorize, and they consume information, but they don't absorb, refine, or apply it. They mistake knowledge for wisdom. The difference is everything. Knowledge is what you read. Wisdom is what you understand deeply enough to wield like a weapon. Most people passively consume. The Stoics did the opposite. They treated learning like a warrior sharpens a blade, through deliberate practice, strategic thinking, and relentless refinement. They didn't just gather ideas, they dissected them, questioned them, and tested them in real life. That's why their words, written thousands of years ago, still hold power today. There was once a man who embodied this principle better than most. He was not a philosopher or a scholar. He was a fighter, both in the ring and in life. His name was Bruce Lee. Lee wasn't just a martial artist, he was a relentless student of the mind and body. He didn't believe in memorizing techniques. He believed in absorbing what was useful, discarding what was unnecessary, and refining what remained. His approach to fighting was an extension of his approach to learning, fluid, adaptable, ruthless in its efficiency. One story stands out. The young fighter came to Lee, eager to learn his secrets. Instead of training him immediately, Lee filled a cup with water and told the man to hold it. Then he poured more and more water until it overflowed. "Your mind is like this cup," he said, "full of opinions, assumptions, things you think you already know. If you wish to learn, you must first empty your cup." Most people don't realize it, but their minds are just as cluttered. They don't struggle with learning because they're incapable. They struggle because they refuse to unlearn. They cling to outdated beliefs, rigid ways of thinking, and inefficient habits. The Stoics understood this long before Lee did. Seneca wrote, "What is the point of having countless books and learning endlessly if it does not strengthen your mind?" He knew that true learning wasn't about hoarding knowledge, it was about making it part of you. A mind that learns like a warrior doesn't just collect information. It questions relentlessly, it refines, it discards what is weak and strengthens what remains. Imagine a blacksmith forging a sword. If he simply adds more and more metal, the blade becomes heavy, unbalanced, and useless. But if he melts it down, hammers out the impurities, and sharpens it with precision, it becomes deadly. Your mind is the same. It must be stripped of clutter, focused, and honed through deliberate training. The modern world has made learning easier than ever, yet people are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. They read, but don't think. They hear, but don't listen. They memorize, but don't apply. The difference between intelligence and wisdom is action. The Stoics mastered this by using a system that is still effective today. First, they practiced active learning, writing down insights, reflecting on them, and explaining them in their own words. Next, they used spaced repetition, revisiting ideas over time to reinforce them. And finally, they applied practical wisdom, testing ideas in real life, refining them, and adapting them. A mind that learns like a weapon is never stagnant. It adapts, it evolves, and it grows sharper with every challenge. If you want to become unshakable, train your mind the same way a warrior trains his blade. Cut away the distractions. Focus only on what strengthens you. Absorb what is useful. Question everything. And when life tests you, you won't just react. You'll know exactly what to do. 3. Teach, lead, dominate. The power of sharing knowledge. A man's wisdom is measured not by what he knows, but by what he can teach. Some spend their lives hoarding knowledge, believing that keeping secrets makes them stronger. Others understand a deeper truth, that the act of teaching refines the teacher, and that true power lies in the ability to articulate, to lead, and to guide. A man who cannot explain what he knows does not truly understand it. A man who does not pass on what he has learned builds nothing that outlasts him. There was a professor, well-respected and brilliant in his field, but known for his arrogance. He had written books and given lectures, yet none of his students ever seemed to grasp his ideas. He would scoff at their ignorance and shake his head at their confusion. To him, their failure was proof of his superiority. One day, an old colleague challenged him. "If they do not understand, perhaps you do not truly know." The professor laughed. He had spent decades mastering his subject. How could he not know? His colleague handed him a sheet of paper. "Write down your most complex theory as if you were explaining it to a child." The professor smirked, took the paper, and began writing. 10 minutes passed, then 30. His smirk faded. The longer he tried to simplify, the more he realized he had never fully grasped the essence of his own ideas. He had knowledge, but not mastery, because if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it deeply. The Stoics knew this long before modern education discovered it. Seneca wrote, "While we teach, we learn." Marcus Aurelius filled his journals not with philosophical musings for others, but reminders for himself. Epictetus, once a slave, became one of the greatest teachers of all time, not because he had power, but because he had the ability to shape the minds of those who did. Knowledge is like fire. Keep it to yourself and it dies. Pass it on and it spreads, growing stronger with each person it touches. Most men believe that leadership is about dominance, about controlling others. They think power is in the ability to command, to demand obedience. But history proves otherwise. The leaders who changed the world were not those who ruled with fear, but those who illuminated the path for others. Look at Marcus Aurelius, a man who could have ruled through force alone. Instead, he spent his nights writing, not about power, but about discipline, about virtue, about wisdom. He led by example, by sharpening his own mind first. Imagine a blacksmith forging a sword. Every strike of the hammer strengthens the steel. Every moment in the fire tempers it. Teaching is no different. Every time you explain something, your understanding deepens. Every time you guide another, your own mind grows sharper. Most people hesitate to teach because they think they aren't ready. They wait to be perfect before sharing what they know. But mastery isn't about being perfect. It's about refining, adjusting, and evolving. The more you teach, the more you learn. A warrior does not train in silence. He fights, he tests, he fails, he corrects. A thinker should do the same. The mind is sharpened through challenge. When you teach, you invite questions. When you explain, you expose gaps in your own logic. When you lead, you are forced to confront your own weaknesses. That is where true mastery begins. There is an old saying among craftsmen, a dull blade is more dangerous than a sharp one. A mind left untested becomes weak, fragile, and prone to failure when it matters most. But a mind that is constantly refined through teaching, questioning, and leading is unbreakable. The world is full of men who consume information but never apply it. They read books, watch videos, and absorb endless content but keep it locked away in their heads. They never test it, never share it, and never sharpen it through conversation and teaching. And so their knowledge fades, useless when the time comes to act. If you want to dominate in your field, in your relationships, in your mastery, start teaching. Not when you feel ready, but now. Teach what you know, and you will quickly see what you don't. Lead, and you will be forced to grow into a leader. Speak, and your mind will sharpen like a blade in battle. A man who learns is wise. A man who teaches is unstoppable. 4. Deep focus, the ruthless advantage of high achievers. Distraction is the silent killer of potential. It doesn't destroy in a single moment, it erodes. A few minutes lost to mindless scrolling, an email interrupting deep work, a notification dragging the mind into another task. The damage isn't immediate, but it compounds. Days turn into months. Projects remain unfinished. Dreams are replaced with routines. The ability to think deeply, to solve complex problems, to push through mental resistance, fades. And yet, few ever question it. Modern life is built on distraction. Every app, every platform, and every flashing screen is designed to steal attention. The most valuable resource isn't time, it's focus. Without it, even time itself is wasted. History is filled with examples of those who understood this truth. They weren't just intelligent or talented, they knew how to protect their minds from distraction. Marcus Aurelius ruled over an empire but carved out time to write, to think, to reflect. Seneca surrounded himself with chaos but trained his mind to remain undisturbed. They mastered what most today have lost, the ability to sit in silence and direct their thoughts. There was once a writer who struggled with this exact problem. He had the skill, the ideas, the ambition, but every time he sat down to work, distractions consumed him. A phone call, an email, a random urge to check the news. Hours would pass and nothing meaningful was created. Frustrated, he made a radical decision. He packed a single bag, left his apartment, and moved into a cabin in the woods. No internet, no phone, no outside world. For the first time in years, his mind was silent. At first, it was unbearable. The urge to check something, to do anything but sit with his own thoughts, was overwhelming. But after a few days, something changed. His brain stopped seeking constant stimulation. He could think again, clearly, deeply, without interruption. In that isolation, he wrote the book that defined his career. Most will never take such an extreme step. But the principle remains. Focus is a muscle. It atrophies when neglected. It strengthens when trained. The modern world teaches that willpower is the solution, that if someone tries hard enough, they can resist distraction. But willpower is weak. It fluctuates. The mind follows its environment. If a room is filled with noise, silence is impossible. If a phone is always within reach, deep focus will never happen. If distractions are constantly allowed in, concentration will always be at war. The only way forward is structural discipline, not just trying harder, but making distraction impossible. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded market. People are shouting, music is playing, and conversations overlap. It's chaos. Now, imagine trying to read a book in the middle of that noise. Impossible. This is how most people live their lives, surrounded by mental noise, unable to concentrate on what truly matters. The solution isn't more motivation. It's creating silence, forging an environment where deep work can happen. The Stoics practiced this through solitude. Marcus Aurelius found moments of stillness even in the heart of an empire. Seneca wrote about isolating the mind and shutting out distractions to gain clarity. Deep focus isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. A wandering mind leads nowhere. A focused mind bends reality. To train this skill, begin with simple rules. Cut away the excess. Block time for undisturbed thinking. Turn off notifications. Protect your attention like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Most will never do this. Most will continue living at the mercy of distractions. But those who learn to master focus will always dominate those who don't. There is an old training exercise used by the Spartans. Young warriors would be forced to fight in complete darkness. No sight, no advantage. They had to rely on instinct, resilience, and raw will. The first time, most panicked. They flailed, missed, and lost their footing. But those who endured learned to move differently, to listen, to fight without fear. Life does the same thing. It blindsides, removes comfort, and forces adaptation. Most panic. They get lost in distractions, avoiding the real fight. But those who learn to navigate the darkness, to trust their minds, to focus under pressure, they become unstoppable. Deep work is not about doing more. It's about doing better. It's about resisting the pull of mediocrity, about forging an attention span that cuts through noise like a blade. This is the secret advantage of the greats. It always has been. 5. Master your memory. Retain, recall, and dominate. The difference between those who excel and those who struggle is not intelligence. It's the ability to remember what matters, discard what doesn't, and use knowledge when it counts. Most people assume memory is something they're born with, good or bad, strong or weak. But memory is a skill, a tool. And like any tool, it can be sharpened or dulled, strengthened or neglected. There's a reason why the greatest minds in history relied on techniques to enhance their recall. Seneca committed entire philosophical works to memory. Marcus Aurelius revisited his thoughts constantly, refining them and reinforcing them. These thinkers knew that knowledge untrained is knowledge lost. The mind is like a battlefield. Thoughts come and go, shifting like soldiers in the fog. Without a strategy, they scatter and disappear. But with discipline, the mind can be trained to hold on to the essentials, discard the noise, and access wisdom in real time. There was once a doctor, brilliant, respected, relied upon by many. But over time, something started happening. He would walk into a room and forget why he was there. He would start a sentence and lose his train of thought. His mind, once razor sharp, had begun to fail him. At first, he dismissed it as stress, overwork, aging. But then one night, after forgetting an important prescription, he realized this wasn't just happening, it was something he was allowing. His mind had grown lazy. He had stopped reinforcing what he learned. He consumed information without testing himself, without practicing recall. He assumed that because he once had a sharp memory, it would always remain. So he changed. He started reading differently, pausing to recall key ideas before moving forward. He wrote, not to take notes, but to force his mind to retrieve what he had learned. He spoke his thoughts aloud, explaining concepts to himself as if he were teaching someone else. In months, the difference was staggering. The mind that had once struggled to hold on to details became sharp again. Not because of magic, not because of talent, because he treated his memory like a muscle and trained it. The Stoics understood this well. They believed that knowledge was useless if it wasn't active, accessible, and applied. Seneca wrote, "We should hunt out the helpful pieces of teaching and the spirited and noble-minded sayings which are capable of immediate practical application." The goal was never to hoard information. It was to engrave wisdom onto the mind so deeply that it became instinct. Most people try to learn by repetition. They read something over and over, hoping it will stick. But the mind doesn't work like that. Information that is passively absorbed is quickly forgotten. Instead, memory is strengthened through effort. Struggle is the signal that learning is happening. Imagine a blacksmith forging a blade. If the metal is never heated, never struck with force, it remains weak. But with fire, with pressure, with repetition, it hardens into something strong. Memory works the same way. Information that is retrieved, tested, and applied becomes unbreakable. The method is simple. Absorb, recall. Apply. Repeat. Read less, but retain more. Stop consuming passively. Start testing, questioning, and proving what has been learned. The brain, like the body, adapts to what it is trained for. If it is fed distractions, if it is never forced to work, it will weaken. But if it is pushed, if it is made to retrieve, recall, and sharpen, it will grow stronger. Most people will never do this. They will continue to drown in information and starve for wisdom. But those who train their memory will always have an edge over those who let their minds slip into weakness. Train the mind to retain, and nothing learned is ever wasted. Knowledge will always be within reach, ready to be used, ready to be mastered. 6. Think like a strategist. Cut through lies, biases, and weakness. The greatest battles are not fought with swords or guns, but with the mind. The real war is the one against illusions, false beliefs, biases, and emotional impulses that distort reality. Most people walk through life reacting, believing they are making rational choices, when, in truth, they are being pulled in different directions by unseen forces. Fear, ego, past experiences, and social conditioning create a fog over their thinking. Without a clear vision, success is impossible. A person cannot lead, cannot strategize, cannot build anything lasting if their perception of reality is flawed. The ability to strip away illusions, to see things as they truly are, is what separates those who thrive from those who are trapped. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while surrounded by betrayal, war, and chaos. But he never allowed his judgment to be clouded by fear or desire. He knew that the strongest mind is the one that remains unshaken by external forces. There was once a military commander who mastered this skill, Hannibal Barca. Rome, the most powerful force in the world, stood against him. His army was outnumbered, his resources were scarce. By all logic, he should have been defeated before the battle even began. But Hannibal saw something others didn't. While Rome expected a direct attack, he studied their weaknesses. He ignored conventional wisdom, leading his army through the impossible, crossing the Alps in winter, striking from an angle no one had considered. His victory at Cannae remains one of the greatest military maneuvers in history. Why? Because he removed assumptions and saw reality clearly. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they let emotions dictate their thinking. They assume success will come easily. They expect fairness. They react to setbacks with frustration instead of analysis. They trust their first instincts instead of questioning them. A strategist does the opposite. They step back. They challenge everything. They remove emotion from decision-making and focus only on what is real. Imagine walking through a dense fog. Shapes loom ahead. Some appear dangerous, others seem safe. Without clarity, every step is a risk. But as the fog lifts, what once seemed threatening is revealed as harmless. What appeared safe is seen for the danger it truly is. This is how most people live, moving blindly, controlled by assumptions and emotions. But those who learn to cut through the fog, to see with precision, to think with clarity, those are the ones who control their own fate. The Stoics practiced this through discipline and self-examination. They questioned their thoughts constantly, testing their beliefs against reality. Is this true, or do I just want it to be true? Am I reacting out of fear or responding with reason? If I removed emotion from this situation, what would I see? These questions expose weaknesses. They prevent mistakes before they happen. They create an advantage over those who act on impulse. Seneca wrote that people suffer more in imagination than in reality. The mind fabricates problems that do not exist. It magnifies fears, exaggerates threats, and blinds people to what is actually happening. But those who train their thinking become immune to these illusions. A leader cannot afford to live in fantasy. A strategist does not make decisions based on hope. Power belongs to those who see reality as it is. Brutal, unfiltered, uncompromising. The modern world rewards those who can think clearly. Those who don't, they become prey. They are manipulated, influenced, and led by those who do understand how things truly work. Most will never break free from this cycle. They will continue reacting, blaming circumstances, chasing illusions. But those who train their minds to think with precision, to cut away deception, to navigate life with strategy, they will always be in control. The world belongs to those who see it as it is. 7. Command your emotions. Master yourself. Master the world. The strongest person in any room is not the one who yells the loudest or demands attention. It is the one who remains unshaken, who does not let emotions dictate their actions. Most people are at the mercy of their feelings. They react in anger, lash out in frustration, panic in uncertainty. And when the storm passes, they regret it. This is a weakness. Not because emotions are bad, but because losing control of them is giving up power. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology caught up. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Seneca warned that anger is temporary madness, and that to act out of impulse is to make decisions that later become chains. A person who cannot master their emotions is a person who will always be controlled by circumstances, by people, by their own mind. There was once a warrior, undefeated in combat. His discipline was unmatched, his strategy flawless. But in one fateful duel, something changed. His opponent insulted him, not just a simple taunt, but something personal, something meant to provoke. It worked. Blinded by fury, he charged in, recklessly. His technique was abandoned, his awareness clouded. And in that instant, he lost, not because he lacked skill, but because he had lost control of himself. Surviving the fight did not matter. His reputation was destroyed. The legend of his discipline was erased by a single moment of weakness. Now, picture the opposite. A person who does not react, but chooses their response, who listens while others lash out, who remains still when chaos erupts. This is true power. Modern life is filled with emotional landmines. A single word can set off anger. A delayed response can spark insecurity. A minor inconvenience can create an unnecessary battle. But strength is not found in reacting. It is found in stepping back, assessing, and responding with intelligence. The world is filled with those who let emotions control them. The boss who lets stress turn into aggression. The employee who lets frustration lead to carelessness. The leader who lets fear cloud their judgment. The greatest advantage anyone can develop is the ability to feel emotion without being ruled by it. Imagine a storm. The wind howls, the rain falls, everything is in chaos. Most people panic, trying to fight the storm, resisting it, screaming into it. But the master of emotions does something different. They do not waste energy on what they cannot control. They do not fear the storm. They understand that it will pass. The same is true for emotions. The challenge, of course, is how to develop this control. It begins with awareness, recognizing the surge of emotion before it takes over. Instead of reacting, pause, observe it. Ask, is this emotion helping me or is it making me weaker? Then reframe. Instead of thinking, this is unfair, this is unacceptable, shift the perspective. This is a test. This is an opportunity to prove my control. Seneca advised that before anger takes over, step back and imagine how it will look tomorrow, next week, and next year. Most things that provoke emotion today will mean nothing in the future. But most people will never do this. They will continue reacting, being pulled in every direction by their feelings. They will justify their outbursts, blame others, and remain prisoners of their own impulses. A person who masters the masters of their emotions in life itself. They do not waste time arguing over trivial things. They do not let fear dictate their choices. They do not crumble under pressure. They act instead of react. Most will never reach this level, but those who do become unshakable. 8. Unshakable confidence. Walk with power, speak with authority. Confidence is not about arrogance. It is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It is not about dominance, nor is it about seeking approval. Real confidence is quiet, steady, and unshakable. It is built not on words, but on action. It is the foundation of those who lead, those who command respect without demanding it, and those who move through life with certainty, not because they have all the answers, but because they trust in their ability to find them. Most people misunderstand confidence. They think it is something you are born with. But confidence is not a gift. It is something forged, built over time through discipline, through experience, through mastering one's own mind. There was once a man, a respected leader, known for his presence. He never needed to raise his voice. He never needed to prove his worth. People listened when he spoke, not because of charm or charisma, but because his words carried weight. One day, a younger rival challenged him publicly, trying to humiliate him. The crowd waited for an outburst, a counterattack, but he simply smiled and remained silent. The challenger grew nervous, his insults growing weaker. When the moment came, the leader spoke just a few words. Calm, controlled. And with that, the challenger lost the battle, not because he had been defeated in an argument, but because confidence does not need to fight for attention. It commands it. Most people lack confidence because they rely on external validation. They need reassurance, approval, and recognition. But true confidence comes from within. It is built through competence, through preparation, through the knowledge that one's value is not dependent on others. The Stoics believed this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." What sense does it make to value another person's judgment more than your own? Imagine walking across a narrow bridge over a deep canyon. Those who hesitate, those who doubt their own footing, are the ones who stumble. But those who move forward, trusting in their steps, cross with ease. Confidence is no different. Those who second-guess themselves, who fear judgment, and who hesitate are the ones who are most likely to fail. But those who trust in their ability, in their preparation, in their own worth, are the ones who succeed. Confidence does not come from faking it. It does not come from pretending. It comes from being prepared, from mastering your craft, from knowing that you are capable because you have done the work. A person who has trained, who has studied, who has tested themselves again and again, does not walk into a challenge with fear. They walk in knowing they are ready. The problem is that most people expect confidence to come first. They wait for it, thinking that once they feel ready, they will act. But confidence follows action, not the other way around. A speaker does not become confident before stepping on stage. They become confident by stepping on stage again and again, refining their skill, learning, and growing. A leader does not gain confidence before leading. They gain it by making decisions, taking responsibility, by facing challenges head-on. Seneca wrote that true confidence comes not from luck, but from preparation. The more you train, the more you study, the more you push yourself, and the less fear has a place to exist. Most people will never reach this point. They will continue doubting themselves, holding back, and letting fear stop them. But those who take action, who refine their skills, who build themselves into something strong, will never need to seek confidence. It will be theirs. Confidence is not about waiting to feel ready. It is about becoming ready. And those who commit to this truth will walk through life with power that no one can shake. 9. Leave a legacy that outlives you. The mark of true mastery. Most people live as if time is endless, as if there will always be another chance to do what matters. They chase recognition, accumulate possessions, and build lives centered around fleeting achievements. And then one day, they realize too late that none of it truly mattered. Wealth fades, titles are forgotten, applause dies down, but the impact remains. The lessons shared, the wisdom passed down, the example set for others, these are what lives on. Most hesitate to think about legacy. They imagine it as something distant, reserved for the wealthy, the powerful, or the famous. But legacy is not about grand monuments or names written in history books. It is about the everyday choices that shape others long after you are gone. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful rulers in history, did not write meditations to be remembered. He wrote to discipline his mind, to leave behind something useful, not for himself, but for those who would come after. Seneca believed that to hoard wisdom was to waste it, and that knowledge meant nothing unless it was shared. You must live for others if you want to live for yourself, he wrote. A life spent in pursuit of self alone is a life easily forgotten. There was once a craftsman, known not for his wealth, but for his skill. He had spent decades refining his art, shaping wood into things of beauty. He was sought after, respected, and admired. But when asked about his greatest work, he never pointed to a finished piece. Instead, he looked to the apprentices beside him, the ones he had trained, the ones who would continue his craft long after he was gone. My legacy is not in what I build, he said. It is in the hands that will build after me. This is the difference between those who live only for themselves and those who live for something greater. Most people measure success by what they acquire, but those who understand true mastery measure it by what they leave behind. Some think legacy comes later, that it is something to be built when there's more time, more money, more recognition. But legacy is not built in the future. It is shaped in the present. It is in the small acts, mentoring someone, sharing knowledge, and living with integrity. It is in the way challenges are faced, in the way setbacks are turned into lessons for others to learn from. Imagine planting a tree. The person who plants it may never sit under its shade. They may never see its branches stretch toward the sky, but one day someone else will. Every action is a seed. Every lesson shared, every habit instilled, every effort made to uplift someone else. These things grow long after the person who planted them is gone. Seneca warned that time is the one thing given freely, yet most squander it as if it were infinite. People fill their days with distractions, chasing things that will not matter when their time is up. But those who see clearly understand that every day is an opportunity to build something lasting. Most will spend their lives concerned with themselves. They will chase things that bring immediate gratification, forgetting that none of it carries beyond the moment. But those who live intentionally, those who pass down wisdom, who lead by example, who create something that outlives them, those people never truly disappear. and that is the mark of true mastery. Everything comes down to this. Mastery is not a destination. It is not a title, nor is it a final achievement. It is a process, a discipline, a way of living. Those who seek to be the best, the smartest, and their own master do not wait for life to hand them greatness. They create it, one choice at a time. You have the tools, you know. But knowledge alone is nothing without action. Confidence is built through preparation. Strength is forged through discipline. Wisdom is sharpened through teaching. And legacy is created not in the future, but in the actions you take today. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest leaders, wrote daily reminders to himself, not because he was weak, but because he knew that mastery is a lifelong effort. Seneca believed that time is the most valuable resource, and yet, most people waste it. The question is, will you? Will you choose discipline over distraction? Focus over noise? Growth over comfort? These lessons mean nothing if they remain as words. They must be lived. Each day is a test of patience, resilience, and self-control. How you respond will determine whether you remain as you are or rise above. Take these lessons and apply them. Train your mind. Strengthen your focus. Speak with authority. Walk with confidence. And when challenges come, as they always will, meet them with the composure of someone who refuses to be shaken. Now, I ask you, what is one principle from this that you will start applying today? Share your thoughts below, and let's build a community of those who refuse to settle for anything less than mastery.